Hey everybody, this is Matt and I'm making a new Heroclix video. This video will be talking about the upcoming Joker's Wild set and one of his sub-themes, the Justice Society of America. I started playing Heroclix in 2009. I came in right when Topps dropped the game and right when NECA picked it up. At the time, I was mainly only collecting DC Comics characters. Hammer Thor was about to come out and I wasn't really excited for Thor characters. I didn't really know them and it was Marvel. So I focused on past DC sets and tried to collect them. I bought a brick of Justice League, a brick of Crisis, and a brick of Arkham Asylum. One of the pieces I pulled that made the biggest impact on me was the Crisis the Spectre giant piece. He was huge, he had a beautiful sculpt, he was super tanky, and just an overall powerhouse piece. And he was a part of the Justice Society of America. From that point on, I was a big fan of the JSA. I remember reading some of Jeff Johns' run on the JSA comic book. I really liked that group. The way the veterans like Jay Garrick, Alan Scott, and Wildcat kind of played like a supportive teacher role for the new generation of the Justice Society was really nice. There were a lot of cool characters with a plethora of different powers like Dr. Midnight, Dr. Fate, Stargirl, Power Girl, Atom Smasher, Magog, Wildcat 2, Citizen Steel, and Amazing Man. I just really liked the group of characters. It was larger than a normal team, like much larger than the X-Men were or the Fantastic Four were, but each character was pretty interesting and really unique. Since NECA picked up Heroclix, there has been droplets of JSA characters spread out among the DC sets. We might get one or two in a set. If we got lucky, we'd get them as a sub-theme like we did in the DC 75th Anniversary set that came out in late 2010. But there's been so many characters that were released before the carded era that have never been made again. Characters like Wildcat, Dr. Midnight, Sandman, Johnny and Jakeem Thunder, Atom Smasher, Hourman as a human, and Obsidian, just to name a few. While we got some remakes like Stargirl and Starman, we never got JSA Pacific versions of certain characters like Hawkgirl and Hawkman. I look at my display case where I stored all my Justice Society characters and see so many older pieces that I would likely never play with because they were older and they just couldn't compete with the newer pieces. When the Superman Wonder Woman set was announced, a sub-theme of Earth 2 was mentioned. Earth 2, if you don't know what that is the New 52 take on the Justice Society. Most of the characters are similar to their Justice Society versions, but they've been redesigned with new origins and new looks. Sadly, the Earth 2 version was never called the Justice Society. They were named the Wonders of the World. So when the set came out, all those characters were given the Wonders of the World keyword and not the Justice Society keyword. Being a theme team purist, I couldn't see myself combining the two groups together. And because of that, I was pretty disappointed. So when WizKids announced the Joker's Wild set, they mentioned a sub-theme of JSA. And to say I was excited was an understatement. This could be our chance to get carded versions of many characters. Perhaps even see characters that have never been made before. As time went on, we learned more about the set, what pieces were in it, and what stats they had. At a convention, WizKids showed off a lot of the pieces from the Joker's Wild set, and some JSA pieces were among the group. Some of the JSA had amazing sculpts, like Jay Garrick running across water, or Alan Scott with the Green Clicks FX base. But then people saw the point totals on the pieces. Green Lantern and the Flash were 35 points, and Dr. Fate was 40 points. Also, just seeing one click of their dial, they only had one power showing. This was really confusing for everyone, and it upset a lot of people. People wondered how these characters would be accurately represented with so few powers and at such a low point cost. How do you properly represent the powerhouse that is Green Lantern at just 35 points and with just energy shield deflection? Some people argued not to judge the dials now and to wait and see them in full before making any final comments. At an Alliance retailer show, someone quoted a WizKids worker who stated that the goal was to fit all 9 original JSA members on a 300-point team. This of course only added fuel to the fire that was negative complaints about this rendition of the Justice Society. So now with the set less than a week away from release, but some people already got their hands on it at pre-releases, I want to give my thoughts on WizKid's latest take on the Justice Society. I love the JSA, so this has been a roller coaster of emotions for me. I've gone through excitement, shock, disappointment, anger, frustration, and now acceptance. So let's look at each of these dials and talk about them, and afterwards I'll give my final thoughts on this rendition of the JSA. So before we get started, I want to mention a trait that all the JSA pieces, or at least most of them that are in the ones in the set, have, and it's called a simpler time. And it says once per turn for all characters with this trait, if a character uses the JSA team ability to replace its defense value with insert name here, also add an extra effect. So if you don't know what the JSA team ability is, it allows two characters with the JSA team ability that are adjacent to each other to share their defense if either one gets attacked. So if Green Arrow and Wildcat are right next to each other, and Green Arrow is taking damage and he's on his 15 defense click, he could share Wildcat's 17 defense if he gets attacked again. But a simpler time will add an extra effect on top of that. And because you can daisy chain defenses, like let's say you had Green Arrow, Wildcat, Green Lantern, and Dr. Fate, you could share Dr. Fate's defense with Green Lantern, sharing it with Wildcat, and sharing it again with Green Arrow. So you could transfer, if Dr. Fate had an 18 defense, he could transfer it to Green Lantern, transfer it to Wildcat, and then finally transfer it to Green Arrow. And because of that, you would get each bonus from each of the characters with a simpler time trait. So the whole idea is that when you have a bunch of them together in a group and you transfer a defense value between all of them, you'll get a whole bunch of little miniature extra effects basically, which would make it worth running them all together and would make, even though they're a low point total, make them harder to hit and more survivable. So let's start out with the comments from the Joker's Wild set. The first one up is Green Arrow, who ironically was never a part of the Justice Society of America. I don't know where WizKids got their information, but supposedly like around one of the crises, he was a part of another group that had something to do with the Justice Society. So somehow WizKids was like, okay, we're going to factor him into one of the original 9 members, which he wasn't. It's really, really weird. I don't know why they gave him Justice Society team ability or the keyword or any of it, but whatever. He has 6 range, Justice Society team ability, and he's 40 points. His simpler time extra effect is, if you replace somebody's defense value with Green Arrow's defense value, you also modify that character's defense value by +1 against ranged attacks. So if someone's shooting somebody and you share Green Arrow's 17 defense, that means you'd have a 17 +1 because of the ranged attack. He has Sidestep and Range Combat Expert. That's all he has, basically. So he's going to be sitting back really far and shooting people. He can go either a 12 for 2 damage, an 11 for 3 damage, or a 10 for 4 damage, which isn't bad. And the Range Combat Expert works well with the Sidestep, but he has no defense powers whatsoever. So if you shoot him for 4, he's most likely dead. Moving on to Wildcat, which is really, really weird because this whole time we've been talking about how the JSA pieces are super short points, very few powers, very, very basic. But Wildcat breaks that mold completely. He has Justice Society team ability and he's 65 points. He's more expensive than 90% of the other JSA pieces in the set. And he's supposed to be one of the weaker characters of the group. He's indomitable, which is really nice. His simpler time ability is if you share Wildcat's defense with a character, that character can use probability control, but only to reroll one of the dice of the attack rolls. So if someone attacks somebody and you share Wildcat's defense with them, and they roll a 6 and a 1, you could force them to reroll that 6, and they would keep the 1. So that's pretty good. It also has another trait. Adjacent opposing characters cannot use Close Combat Expert. And that's very situational and really not that useful. I really wish they would have given him a trait where it would have worked into his, 9 lives thing that Wildcat has, where you think you killed him, but he's not really dead. You just used up one of his lives, And I see they kind of worked that in there with the last click of regeneration there. But overall, for 65 points, he has Charge, Quake, Empower. The Empower will be very useful with other JSA close combat pieces, so you can bump up their damage by 1. Then he takes a few damage, and he bounces on his sidestep with Close Combat Expert. He has really nice attack values, 11, 10, 11, 11, 10. And with Close Combat Expert, he can bump that up to a 4 damage and probably still hit you pretty easily. And if he's right up on top of you, you gotta hit a 19 because of his combat reflexes, giving him a +2 defense against close combat attacks. And even on his last click, where you may think I may want to regenerate here, you can also do a close combat expert and go up to like 11 for 4 or 10 for 5. I mean, he is offensive his entire dial. I think he's worth the points for 65 points. He's indomitable. That's going to be huge. And I just really like this Wildcat. If anything, if we disregard all the other JSA pieces in this set, all the low point dials that are super simple, that are very forgettable, the Wildcat for 65 points is a piece. I'm happy to have him added to the Justice Society team. So moving on to the uncommons, we have Our Man, the Atom, and Hawkman. Now this is good because we finally got versions of Our Man and Hawkman in a carded form. Now we had the Atom already from the DC 75th anniversary set. Okay, so Our Man, his simpler time thing is if you share his defense with a character, that character can use probability control, but only if the attack roll has a 6. So if they roll a 6 and a 3, that character could use probability control. It's very situational. I don't think it's going to come up that often, and I think it's probably one of the weaker, a simpler time traits. But again, if you put everybody together in a group and daisy chain the defense through all the characters, every time any of them get attacked, it's an effect that just will be okay. He has a special movement, give Our Man a move action when he's adjacent to block and terrain and not holding an object. When you do, after action resolve, Our Man is holding a standard light object. So I guess it's kind of like he's punching the wall and pulling out a light object or something, like a brick maybe, He is indomitable, but he has no move and attack. So most likely you'll have to give him a move action to get near an opponent, if it starts out adjacent to block and terrain, And then when he ends up next to the opponent, he'll have the light object, and then next turn you could hit him with the light object. Honestly though, that would be more of a late game tactic, because early game you probably have your own objects on the field. And sadly you can't use an ultra heavy object because he's not 100 points or more, so the most you'll be able to do is pick up a heavy and maybe hit somebody for 4 damage. The problem is if they outwit the super strength on Our Man, he's kind of awful at that point, because his damage values are super weak. He has no defense powers, no damage powers. He has no other attack powers, and he has no move and attack. So you outwit his super strength, and you just don't even mess with him. He has 2 clicks of 10 attack, 2 clicks of 9 attack, and 1 click of 8. He's awful. He's probably the weakest of the pieces so far I've seen. The Indomitable helps a little bit, but his simpler time trait is weak. His power base is weak. No move and attack is weak. 5 clicks of life is okay, but I don't think I'd play the Our Man. Moving on to the Atom. I think the Atom is like the complete opposite of the Our Man. I think the Atom is like where it's at. His simpler time addition, his trait is if you share his defense with somebody, you also modify that character's defense value by +1 against close attacks. So if you have Wildcat and the Atom and Our Man all up on somebody, okay, and you share Atom's defense with the other two, they'll get a +1 defense against close attacks, which is really nice. Even if you have 2 Atoms next to each other, they each give themselves +1 against close attacks. Then their combat reflexes will kick in and give them +2 against close attacks, for a total of a 20 defense against close attacks, which is pretty neato. Sidestep is okay. They're not indomitable, so you're going to have to rest them every other turn. But the Close Combat Expert is really nice because the 3 damage starting out makes him a definite threat. He can go 10 for 5 if needed. If he wants a little bit better chances of hitting, he can go 12 for 3. It's still nothing to joke about, Now, he does get 9 attack later on, and that's fairly weak. It's going to be hard to hit anybody with 9 attack. But again, he still has the Close Combat Expert. He can bump himself up to an 11 attack if he really needs to, and maybe hit for 1 or 2 damage. But at least he's a threat for 25 points. And his simpler time trait, it has some usefulness. You know, if you're going for a more offensive, close combat JSA team, you definitely want to run the Atom. And then the final uncommon is Hawkman, which I'm really excited to see. You know, again, I said earlier we've never got a JSA Pacific Hawkman. We've gotten Hawkmen in the past. Some have been Justice League, some have been Justice League of America, but we never got a Justice Society Hawkman in the carded form. So this one is 30 points. His simpler time trait addition is when you share Hawkman's defense with someone, which he has an 18 defense, which is nice. Also modify that character's defense by +1 against close attacks. So that's good. He has the same exact thing as the Atom. So if you have Hawkman carry the Atom into battle, because he has that 10 movement and he's flight, he can carry the Atom, then he could share the 18 with the Atom, and then they both could modify their defense buys by +1. So the Atom would have an 18, 19 from Hawkman, 20, 21 from combat reflexes. The Atom would have a 21 close combat, and then Hawkman would have an 18, 19. So that's pretty good. In that case, the combat reflexes with the replacement value of the 18 and the addition on top of that just blow up the Atom and make him really defensive. Hawkman has charge, pretty decent charge, 10 movement, 11 attacks, really decent, 3 damage. You know, if he had super strength, he would be a huge threat. Again, if you outwit his charge, you cripple him a lot, because then he can't get up to you, he has no range, but the 18 defense is going to be a little bit harder to hit, so he's not totally out of it. I definitely think the Hawkman is probably one of the stronger pieces, but he's very weak to certain things, as they all are. They all lack a lot of defense powers, lack a lot of powers in general, and energy explosion hitting the group of them. If you had triple lightning bolt energy explosion, you're probably going to murder them all. Moving on to the rares, we have the Flash, Sandman, the Spectre, and Dr. Fate. So if you've been following so far, there's 2 commons, 3 uncommons, 4 rares, and 3 super rares. So WizKids definitely skewed the rarity for the JSA towards the harder to get pieces. The hardest ones are going to be the super rares, and especially the super rare prime, which is the hardest piece in the set usually to get. So let's start out with the Flash. He has 0 range, he's 35 points, and his simpler time trait says if you share the Flash's defense, which he does start out with an 18, that character gets super senses, but only evades on a 6. And that's useful. I know 6 is not very common to be rolled, but it is a 1 in 6 chance to completely ignore the attack. And it doesn't matter if it's a range attack or a close combat attack. So I feel like the Flash, you have to run the Flash. It's just a really, unless someone else gets that. Okay, it looks like the Spectre gets it too. So you either have to run the Flash or the Spectre, or both, you know, But it's almost like a scroll team ability added on, you know. So that is useful. It is useful. Bad thing is, with all the precision strike out there, it's going to ignore that super senses regardless. That's kind of disappointing. I mean, it really messes over the Spectre. If you have precision strike, it's something, okay? The Flash has hypersonic speed, good movement speeds, decent movement speeds. It could be better, it could be up there 14, 15. He has 18 defense, and then late game he gets super senses. I don't really understand the late game super senses, because most likely if he gets hit on the click 2 or click 3, and then gets hit again, he's just going to get KO'd. I don't really understand the late game super senses unless they're planning for a sealed environment where there may be a lot of 2 or 3 damage attackers. So the hypersonic speed is not bad. His attack values are not bad. 11 starting out is really nice. So maybe he can run out there and poke somebody for 2. Maybe if they don't have toughness, maybe if they just have energy shield deflection, he can run out there and poke them for 2. That's about as much he's going to be able to do in his game though. Because against anybody with toughness, against anybody with invulnerability, against anybody with impervious, he's basically doing like 1 damage, which doesn't add up to much. Because in a battle with a character like that, they're just going to one-shot one of your guys. So when you do 1 damage to them, then they one-shot you. it didn't really add much, you know? So I think the Flash is okay. He's definitely cheaper than the versions of him from the Flash set, but I don't know if he's a must. I feel like the Spectre is probably more the must play because of the higher defense and also the super senses. He's only 5 points more and he has an 8 range. I think when the Flash runs out there to hypersonic, if he can't get back to his group and have that shared defense, he's basically useless at that point. So I think that's where the Spectre would probably be a better role because he could just stay with the group and shoot 8 squares away if needed. So moving on to the Sandman, he has 5 range, Justice Society team ability. They all have the Justice Society team ability. Let's just make that a given. And he's 30 points. So his simpler time trait says that if you share his defense with somebody, they can use probability control, but only if the attack roll has a 6. So that's similar to one of the uncommons, and it's very situational. You definitely don't want to play Sandman and the other one that has the same exact simpler time, because then you're just having the same effect and not really getting a bonus off of it. But let's look at his other stuff. He also has a special damage, Sleep Gun. When Sandman hits with an attack, after action resolve, he may counter a power on the target until the character clears action tokens. So what's cool is he has to hit, but he doesn't have to deal damage. And his 2 damage most likely won't deal a lot of damage. But if you can hit somebody, sadly he only has a 10 attack, and I don't think anybody has Perplex. If you can hit somebody with his 10 attack, then you could counter their defense, and then you could have someone like maybe the Atom use his close combat expert, hit him for big. But Sandman is about the only way to outwit anything with the Justice Society, the lower point pieces, because most of them are missing any kind of utility powers. You know, there's not there's a lot of very limited probability control. This is the only outwit. I don't think there's any perplex. Dr. Fate has empower and enhancement. There's a little bit of empower and a little bit of enhancement, but not a lot of other stuff, you know. He is stealthy and he has willpower. With that, I would say you should probably play him because the willpower means he'll be able to attack 2 turns in a row. He has the only outwit available of the group. He's stealthy and he has an okay simpler time trait. So I think he's worth playing. So the third one is the Spectre. And this is where he has the defense values. This dude is the one that you really need to play because he's going to be sharing that 18, and if he gets hit for a little bit of damage, he could share that 19 defense all around. And when you have that 19 shared all around, then you have pieces like Dr. Fate that are right, the one next to him, that has ESD, Energy Shield Deflection. So if you share that 19 from the Spectre to Dr. Fate, and then he has Energy Shield Deflection, he goes up to a 21. And then maybe one of the other ones say, like, if you share the defense and it's a ranged attack, increase it by 1. That'd be a 22 you would have to hit for Dr. Fate, which is pretty insane. So you have to run the Spectre basically. He has 8 range and Injustice Society team ability. The 8 range is very useful, but he starts out with only 9 attack. That's really rough. He is flight and he has phasing, so he can carry somebody. He has shape change, which is decent. His simpler time trait is if you share the Spectre's defense with a character, that character can use super senses for the attack, but only evades on a 6. So that's the same as the Flash's, but I feel like the Spectre has a much bigger role in the team than the Flash does. So I would say take the Spectre and think about the Flash, you know? He's really not offensive. Maybe you could just purposely push the Spectre. He's not indomitable. He doesn't have power cosmic. So maybe you just push the Spectre on your own and get him onto his last 2 clicks, where his attack value goes up, his damage value goes up, and his defense value goes up. Then again, though, if he gets shot with precision strike, he doesn't have anything other than a high defense protecting him. But I think the Spectre could maybe survive with that 19 defense. If you have some other simpler times working for you, I think he could work. And once you get him to 19, that keeps everybody's survivability up a bit, you know? So he's definitely one you want to pick up. The Spectre is very important to play these low point JSA pieces. The last one is Dr. Fate. He has 6 range, Justice Society team ability, and is 40 points. He's also indomitable, which is really nice, and flying. So you have something here that Spectre, Dr. Fate, and the Hawkman that are flying that can carry a piece with them. And in Dr. Fate's case, he could also maybe even attack the turn after because he's indomitable. But the 9 attack is again very weak. I hate to say it, but it feels like Dr. Fate's going to be another supportive piece with very limited attack value. His simpler time trait is when you share Dr. Fate's defense with somebody, they can use probability control, but only to reroll one of the dice. So that's really useful. That's really useful. I can't remember which one also had it, whether that was Wildcat. I think there was a common that had it. But that's very, very useful because, again, if they roll a 5 and a 2, you can go, you keep the 2, reroll the 5. Especially if you're sharing the 19 defense with Dr. Fate and he's up to a 21, maybe up to a 22, and they need that 11 to hit or something, and they're just like, okay, I got a 6 and a 5, and you're like, reroll the 6. And they have to roll another 6 in order to hit you. That's where it really kicks in. That's where it just makes sure they cannot hit anybody. And because you're sharing this, you're daisy chaining it among all your people. It means that whoever they attack, you could do the same exact thing. Again, only downside is they use Pulse Wave and they just ignore everything, you know? And that's another bad thing about the JSA pieces is they're ultimately weak against Pulse Wave, which will just ignore everything, ignore all their powers, and hit everybody for 1 damage, and then maybe next turn Pulse Wave again, hit everybody for 1 damage. You know, slowly eat at everybody. Or if they can angle it right, just focus on a single piece. And I guess, I don't know, would it ignore other people's simple time? Well, you would ignore that character's Justice Society team ability. So would they be able to share their defense? I'm not exactly sure on that. I may have to ask somebody. But the Dr. Fate also has a special damage power. At the beginning of your turn, choose Empower or Enhancement. Dr. Fate can use to choose Empower this turn. So that's useful. I mean, that's useful. So, I mean, that could bump up. Let's say the Spectre was on his last 2 clicks. You know, he's sitting next to Dr. Fate, who chooses Enhancement. Now the Spectre can hit for 4 damage. That's not bad. You know, Sandman can maybe hit for 3 damage then. You know, that's not bad. I definitely think Dr. Fate is a really good one, and the Spectre is a really good one. Sandman is okay, and the Flash is arguable. So let's move on to the super rares. The super rares have 3 super rares. We'll start out with Green Lantern. Green Lantern has 7 range, is 35 points, Justice Society team ability, and is indomitable. His simpler time trait is when you share Green Lantern's defense with somebody, also modify that character's defense value by +1 against ranged attacks. So I'm just going to take a second. Who also has that? Okay, that's Green Arrow also has that. So if you have Green Lantern and Green Arrow on the same team, and let's say you have the Spectre, you know, and he's sharing that 19 defense. You share the 19, you add in both Green Lantern and Green Arrow, and now whoever they're going after is a 21 to hit. Whoever they're going after is a 21 to hit. That's crazy. That is pretty crazy. And that's where the combo comes in. And it's 35 point Green Lantern, 40 point Green Arrow, so that's 75 points, plus 40 point the Spectre. So that's 115 points to basically have a 21 defense on everybody. And it gets even worse for Green Lantern because he has energy shield deflection. So that's really nice. You know, you could even, you know, add in Dr. Fate, you know, for 40 points. So what was that? 115, we're up to 145. 145 for those 4 pieces. 145 for those 4 pieces. They all have 21 defense. In Dr. Fate's case and Green Lantern's case, they'd have a 22 because they'd have the 19 plus 2 for the energy shield deflection, plus an extra 1 from either Green Arrow or Green Lantern. They'd have a 22, and you get to reroll one opponent's dice when they get attacked. So that's where, like, I feel like the Justice Society could be very hard to hit, given they don't have Pulse Wave to ignore everything, you know? But at the same exact time, you also have to ask your question, so they're hard to hit, but how hard do they hit? And that's where I feel like ultimately the Justice Society fall apart, because most are doing 2 or 1 damage, maybe 3, against a big dude that has invincible, invulnerability, or impervious, or even somebody has support with their team it's going to be really hard to make any damaging effect. So maybe instead of running a 300-point team made of 9 JSA pieces, maybe you put 140 points towards 4 of them and then run one bigger dude who can take up all the advantages of the JSA sharing their defense around, but also can like hit for better damage. And I think that's where Jakeem Thunder and Johnny Thunder come in, but we'll get to them in a second. So Green Lantern has a really nice simpler time trait. He also has another trait, Green Lantern's Light. Once per turn, Green Lantern can use Barrier. He can use it as a free action, but only place one barrier marker. When he uses Barrier, he may substitute one barrier marker that he would place with the Light wall marker and place it in a character square within range. So every turn for a free action, he can put his light wall marker in any character square, positioned one side along the edge of the square. So if you think about the square, it has a north side, a south side, an east side, and a west side. This marker acts as a wall. If you place this light wall marker, it is removed at the beginning of your next turn, and then unique modifier, opposing characters adjacent to any of these light wall or barrier markers cannot use stealth and modify their defense values by -1. So the modified defense value by -1 is really nice. The stealth part, really not that useful against other than like Batman pieces. It's very situational, but I guess it's okay. Not only that, but it works as a wall. So you could shoot the opponent. Let's say they had 250 points of their team built into a single piece. You tried to damage them, and then you put up that wall so they cannot shoot you back. And that's useful. That is useful, and that's free on his part. And he has 7 range, so he could throw it out 7 squares out and put it underneath somebody. And if you move to the right, he could next turn free action put it underneath you again. Or he can use barrier as normal and substitute one of the barrier markers for the light wall marker. So it's usefulness, and he's indomitable, and he has ESD. His attack values are kind of weak. His damage values are kind of weak, but okay. The 3 damage is okay. He has no other powers, but his simpler time trait is really nice. His Green Lantern's Light trait has some value. He's 35 points. I definitely think he's worthy of being on the Justice Society cluster you make of all the pieces together. I think he deserves to be put on there. He is a super rare, so he's going to be harder to get though. He's definitely one I really want to get, but at the same exact time, I have the Chase Green Lantern from World's Finest. I think it's the last chase I pulled in like the last 2 years, but I pulled it by luck, and I was so happy. I ran around the store, and I adore that piece because it has 20 defense, Justice Society team ability, telekinesis, running shot, range combat expert, a decent amount of dial, so I really have to ask myself, would I rather run this Green Lantern for 35 points, or would I rather run that other Green Lantern for 170 points? And I don't know. That 20 defense, you think about what you could do with that in this set. Share the 20 around, okay, bump somebody up to 22 if they have ESD. Oh, and then you have a +1 against range attacks. So it's a 23 they now have, a 23 defense. Wow. But I do think, built into its own set, I think this Green Lantern is definitely worth running. And then the final 2 pieces, a lot like the Wildcat, they break the mold. They break the mold completely. They're not low point pieces that have very simple dials. These pieces are completely expanded with powers galore. They're really colorful, and they have a lot of life to them. And ironically, they're 2 pieces that have never been made in carded form. The last time they were made was in Origins in 2007. So it's been 9 years since these pieces have been made, and of course they're super rares because WizKids loves to do that stuff, So the first one is Johnny Thunder. I'm going to do Johnny Thunder first because he's the A version. He has 6 range double targets, Justice Society team ability, and he's 125 points, which is astronomical comparing it to all the other JSA pieces in the set. He does not have a simpler time trait. Okay, so this is where it's kind of confusing because the Flash was a part of the original 9 Justice Society. But when he left the group, Johnny Thunder joined. But they gave a simpler time to Green Arrow that was never a part of the group. And they gave a simpler time to Wildcat, who didn't join until later. But why did they not give a simpler time to Johnny Thunder? That's what is kind of weird. I don't really understand their logic, but okay. So he has a trait. My wish is G. How do I say it? And I think this revolves around. I looked into Johnny Thunder, and basically, the character is more of like a Patrick from SpongeBob SquarePants. A Patrick, a Patrick, a Patrick, Patrick, Patrick. He's not the brightest bulb in the bunch. That's what I'm trying to say. And a lot of people, supposedly a lot of the JSA characters really didn't think much of Johnny Thunder, but they kept him along because of his spirit, the Thunder dude, that was so powerful. So my wish is, gee, how do I say it? It's because he's dumb, basically. He's gorgeous but dumb. Think about that, okay? At the beginning of your turn, roll a d6 that can't be rerolled. On a 1, modify Johnny Thunder's combat values by -1. Oop, messed up, made myself weaker. On a 2 through 5, Johnny Thunder can use a standard power of your choice. That's really nice. So that's what you're going to be rolling most of the time. On a 6, modify Johnny Thunder's combat values by +1, and he can use the standard power of your choice. And any result lasts until your next turn. So he starts out with Sidestep and Invincible. He's going to get Invulnerability. I mean, he's pretty tanky. He also has a special damage. The most powerful JSA member, if only he'd realize it. Johnny Thunder can use Perplex and Probability Control, but only to target opposing characters. And that's okay. It reminds me of Lysa Drake from War Light, who had basically the same exact thing. She had like probability control, but could only use it on opposing characters who were attacking someone that shared a keyword with her, and had perplex, but it can only use it on opposing characters and to reduce values. It really turned a supportive piece into really something silly because you wanted to use it for more, but you really couldn't. So perplex and prob is nice, but you can only use it against opposing characters. It really cuts out half the usefulness of it, And you probably already have some probability control built in with some of these simpler time traits. You can use probability control, but you can only reroll one of the dice. You can use probability control, but only if one of the dice is a 6. Stuff like that. He is the only perplex, but again, you can't perplex your own team members, so that's dumb. I don't really like the damage power. It's okay, but it's I don't know. So you can choose any standard power most of the time. I mean, on a 2 through 6, you get to choose a standard power of your choice. So you really have a lot of options here. You could go offensive. You could go like range combat expert. You could go psychic blast. You could go pulse wave. You could go defensive and choose like shape change or super senses. You can make it harder to hit you. You could choose stealth and go sit down in hindering and just say you can't shoot me unless you can see through hindering terrain. He has a lot of options to him, but I look at some of his attack values, and some of his attack values are just dumb. For 125 points, you're starting out with a 10 attack. That's weak. You can't even perplex him up either. He goes on to a 9 attack. Okay, so like, let's say some weak dude, some weak thug that does 2 damage or 3 damage shoots Johnny Thunder and knocks him onto his second click. He now has a 9 attack, and he can't perplex himself up. So what does he do? He has a 9 attack. Who is he even hitting with a 9 attack? With no prob and no perplex. And looking at all the other JSA pieces in the set, there is no other perplex. So 125 points that gets hit for 1 click is now useless. I mean, I guess you could choose poison and go stand there next to somebody. I guess the thing is, I guess you could perplex down their defense, and that would symbolize you having a 10 attack. It'd be similar to, 2 clicks later, he bounces back on the 9 attack. And then his last 2 clicks seem pretty decent, Sidestep, close combat expert, combat reflexes with 12 attack and 11 attack. Those are clicks I think he should start out with, I don't know, it feels like, I know, supposedly you can play him at a different point total, so that's 125 points, but you can play him maybe at like 100, and you start out halfway down his dial. I don't know if I really like this piece that much. I think if you put a resource on him and put an entity on him, and you could bump him up to, give him extra powers and bump up his attack value, bump up his damage value, maybe they made his attack value low thinking You know, if they roll a 6, they don't want to make it bizarre. I mean, if he's on his last 2 clicks and he rolls that 6, you're talking about a 13 for maybe 6 damage. Yeah, a 13 for 6 damage is insane. I can kind of understand why they kept some of his values low, but dang, I just don't know if he's worth the 125 points, you know? 125 points, you could probably fit 3 more JSA smaller point pieces in there, you know? And most of them are going to be able to do a little bit more than he can. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's very situational with Johnny Thunder. So let's go on to the prime, the statistically hardest piece in the set to collect. Jakeem Thunder, a 9-year-old piece. Say hello to Jubilee, say hello to Starfire. WizKids loves to make these pieces really hard to get. He has 8 range, double target, and he's 140 points with Justice Society team ability. So he has a trait. He does not have simpler time. It makes perfect sense he came out much later. You know what I'm thinking, Johnny? At the beginning of your turn, choose 2 standard powers. Wow, he gets to choose 2 of them. But only one of those powers may be a defense power, or hypersonic speed, or outwit, or perplex, or pulse wave. So he could choose impervious and running shot. One would be a defense power, and another one's not listed in that thing. Or he could choose hypersonic speed and not a defense power. You know, so he could choose hypersonic speed and precision strike. He could choose hypersonic speed and shape change. He has 18 defense with ESD starting out with probability control. So I think it'd be really nice to give him like running shot because he has 8 range, and maybe like super senses or something. You know, so they're having to hit a 20 from range. You get a prob it and you get a super sense it, and you're shooting them 8 squares away. I mean, dang, dude. I mean, that, or you could just say running shot with perplex and perplex yourself up to a 21 defense from range. I mean, this dude is where it's at. He has two clicks at the very end of regeneration and stealth. And the middle of his dial is, I mean, kind of bare with like, but I mean, he has a lot of probability control. And you can choose 2 standard powers. I mean, you can't really go wrong with 2 standard powers. Especially if you put an entity on them that gives them even more stuff. Especially if you give them a resource that gives them even more stuff. His attack values are not super low. He has 11, then 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, then 9, 9. But at that point, the 9, 9, he has 2 18s, which is really nice. You could even choose ESD at that point. So they'd have to hit a 20 from range while you regeneration back up your dial. So it doesn't really matter what your attack value is right then. He's killer. He is absolutely killer. He could see play on meta teams. I wouldn't be surprised. Pick a power has always been a very meta piece with Zombie Super Scroll. It's always been a very meta power. Pick a power. The Justice League Trinity War Batman. You know, Engineer from the Flash set. You know. So Jakeem Thunder could be another meta piece. And with the Justice Society team ability, you put in a few more points for that Spectre. Share that 19, you know, share that 19 with him. He has ESD, so he'd bump up to a 21. You could even choose Perplex and like running shot if needed. You bump up to a 22. Yeah, I think Jakeem Thunder has a lot of potential. And I hate that he's a super rare prime because he's going to be, if you pull him, you better run around the store happy because he's going to be the most valuable and the rarest piece in the set. So it's time for me to give my final thoughts on the JSA pieces. And I know this video has been one of my longest videos of all time. And if you watch this, you deserve 1,000,000 stars and a triple AAAA score for watching this, okay? I want to give my final thoughts on the JSA pieces, okay? At first, when I found out about them, I was really disappointed. How can you take characters haven't been made in carded form like Our Man and be like, okay, we're going to give you this one character every 10 years and we're going to make this the weakest version of him possible? I just don't understand that logic. I mean, when you give us a really fleshed out Johnny Thunder, a really fleshed out Jakeem Thunder, a really fleshed out Wildcat, but every other character other than the Atom, who I think it fits him pretty good, every other character is their weakest possible form ever. I don't understand that logic. I know somebody who was kids was thinking, oh, this is a cool gimmick. You can play all 9 for 300 points. But that person is dumb. And I hate to be mean, I hate to be going on a rant right now, but this was my original feelings on this. I look back at the dolls and I go, they have some purpose. Combo together, maybe you make a puzzle, cooking them all together, and maybe they have some potential. Are they the versions of the characters I wanted? No. I wanted versions that could play along my Justice Society Green Lantern chase piece. I wanted characters that could play along with Stargirl and Starman and some of the other pieces that have come out recently that would be up there with them, that I could play, 3 or 4 of them on a 300-point team, and that'd just be a killer Justice Society team. And none of this fits that, other than the 2 super rares and the 1 common. These JSA pieces will have prolonged usefulness, but I don't think they will have great usefulness. Prolonged meaning because they're low points. You could put them on any team. You could fit them onto a team, and maybe somebody could find a nice combo with them. If you're playing JSA in the future, you're gonna look at these pieces and you're gonna go, okay, do I want to include one of these pieces? Okay, maybe I want to include 1 or 2 of them. That's okay, but they're not gonna have very wide usefulness. You won't be building a 300-point team with all 9 week after week after week. I think everybody will try that team once, maybe twice if they love the JSA, and then they'll say, okay, that was an okay gimmick. These pieces will see usefulness into the future, but they won't be used very much, and that disappoints me greatly because of the history of the JSA. Because it takes 10 years to make some of these characters, and we may not see some of these characters again for 5 more years. I mean, if we're basing it off of upcoming storylines in the DC Comics, I mean, the JSA were not even around in all of New 52, and just have now started showing up. They're still not even around yet. They've just been dropping hints at them. So maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, when the JSA come back, because DC is like, oh crap, we really messed up with New 52. We ruined a lot of stuff. Maybe they come back, maybe they get their own comic, and maybe they're a part of an event and we finally get some pieces back in Heroclix for them. But it really does disappoint me that we've waited so long to get some of these pieces, and they're the weakest versions possible. Because I know how long I've waited for them. I've waited since 2009 for some of these pieces. I've waited 7 years for some of these pieces, and they just don't stand up for what I wanted. And in that, I really am disappointed. But I'm happy overall, because these are more JSA pieces that I can possibly play with. They're characters that have never been made before in carded version, like Hawkman, like Johnny Thunder, Jakeem Thunder, like Hourman, like Sandman, like Wildcat. And for that, that's a huge plus. That's a huge plus to have characters that have been never made it in carded form before. But there's still JSA pieces that still have never been made it in carded form that I still like to see. And there's a potential in the future for some of these JSA pieces to get re-released in monthly organized play kits with better dolls. And for that, I do look forward to the future and harness my hope, the Blue Lantern hope, these JSA characters get some credit, some respect that they deserve. Because they've been around since the 1940s. And they haven't always been given respect from DC, from readers, from people online, and now from WizKids. And I hope for the day where they get a little bit more respect and we get to see more fleshed out versions of them. But I will try out these versions. I will. And I will enjoy opening up the set and seeing the sculpts. The sculpts are amazing. I really do enjoy the sculpts on them. And those are my final thoughts on the Justice Society pieces. Thank you so much for taking your entire day, because I know how long this video is, to watch this one video. You are the best person in the world. You're the most attractive, smartest, funniest person in the whole world for watching this video. And I hope you learned something about Justice Society. I hope you learned something about me and my love for Justice Society. And I hope this video allowed you to form your own thoughts on the Justice Society from the upcoming Joker's Wild Heroclix set. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you have a lot of fun playing Heroclix in the future. Have fun at your Joker's Wild release events in the coming future. And have a fantastic day, everybody. Bye-bye.